Some viewers may find this content disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Jessica Jones, once again, you have stopped by the Fox Den for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. I always love to see the Cryptid Huntress here in the Fox Den, yet allow me to replenish myself. Much better. Fully revamped and charged, I feel my powers oozing through my veins. Without further ado, it is time to take a walk into the darkness.
My creatures of the night, welcome back once again, yes, to another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here in the Fox Den. And of course, Miss Jessica Jones, aka the Cryptid Huntress from Spaced Out Radio, has again joined the cast tonight, and she will continue to join the cast. So let's get rolling. JJ, how are you doing tonight, friend?
Hey, I'm doing excellent as always. Thanks for letting me come hang out with you again.
Thank you for always popping by. It's great. We always have time and space for you, so it's excellent. What's new your way?
Oh, just doing some cryptid hunting. I've been out in the woods, spent the weekend out looking for Bigfoot and looking for Dogman sign actually out in one of my research areas. So doing that, doing shows, talking about cryptids and having a good time.
This is excellent. Great stuff. Anything new, the Dogman your way?
We haven't had any new reports lately, so no, it's kind of quiet over here on this end, down here in the southeastern area. Where I live around the Region 5 area of the North American Dogman Project. I have personally not had any reports. Not to say there aren't any, but I hadn't heard anything recently. But I'm out there doing my own research, and we're having mostly Bigfoot activity right now down in that area.
That's cool. That's very interesting for sure. So has your team been experiencing anything potentially Dogman based, or has anyone else on your squad came forth and said that they think something's occurring that is out of the realm of Sasquatch?
Not recently, no. I mean, I have stories that some of the guys on my teams are, I've got some very seasoned researchers on my team from all over the place, all over the South mostly. They talk about, reports and sightings and things like that, but nothing down here in our area, not lately. No, but hey, listen, I'll keep my ear to the street, so I'll let you know if I hear anything.
That's cool. That's cool. That's super excellent. And you also did say that here in the future you're going out on another pretty cool expedition.
I am. I have several expeditions planned. So yeah, I'm always on some kind of an expedition somewhere. But yeah, I've been invited to go up to. I'm going to be up in Tennessee. That's in September. But before that, I'm going to be heading out, and that's actually supposed to be a Bigfoot kind of squatch out thing with Manimal Research. That's September. I think it's 6th through 8th. But yeah, I've been invited to go out to do some research where they've had some Dogman activity in Alabama and Mississippi. And of course, I've also been invited to a Wendigo hunt up in Maine coming up. So that'd be at the end of the year. I'm not sure if I'm going to make it to that, but hopefully the invite will still be on, and we'll see if I can make it.
That's some busy schedule. If you do make it up to Maine, well, that's where I'm located. So you'll have to definitely stop by and say hello for a few. That'd be pretty cool stuff. But it sounds like you are stacked up for sure, eh?
Oh yeah, for sure. That's in addition to all the conferences I'm going to be at too. So we've got a lot going on, but I love it. I'm staying booked and busy.
This is good. I mean, that's some big girl stuff, but this is what you like. So you got to keep rolling with the punches, correct?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I'm living my best life. I'm over here living my best life, chasing Dogman and Bigfoot. So I
This
love
is
it.
this is very good stuff. Well, I'd like to actually ask you a few questions that you personally would have some good information on. What are your thoughts about these two correlations working together, or do you think that it's also falls under the line of things that Ernie and others, such as myself, spoken about, where in India baboons and monkeys steal wild dogs as well as domesticated dogs and wolf pups and raise them. So as these baboons and monkeys get older, well, they now have dogs that are basically part of their family to help defend them. And so think of that. Obviously, if they raised wild wolves, well, these wolves that are now part of the baboon family or ape family, of course, are going to battle with the wild wolves, and the wild wolves aren't going to like them. And I think that might actually fall into a very good theory when people are potentially seeing Dogman working with Sasquatch. I think the only way that would work is if they did something very similar to as what I just stated. And I think that would also explain why people could see Dogman battling each other, because again, the wild Dogman or the wild wolves aren't going to like anything that seems to be domesticated.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a lot of intermingling there with different species and stuff, and working together. I mean, that would all make sense for sure. I mean, but coming from a field researcher standpoint, nobody on my team that I know of has ever come across Dogman and Bigfoot working together. Okay, like I've heard some stories that people have of their encounters that they claim where they saw, Dogmen working with Bigfoot, or their mortal enemies, they were fighting. I don't know. I appreciate all those stories, but I've never encountered that before. I'm not really sure. You did mention India though, and one of my favorite, I was going to say characters out of India, but it's actually there's a god in India, the Lord Hanuman. Okay, was actually the Indian monkey god there, and I've always associated him with kind of like a Bigfoot type of a creature. Okay, I'm just gonna say creature, even though he's supposed to be a god. But Hanuman is something really interesting to look into, because there's that video that Thinker Thunker, one of my favorite analysts of cryptids, especially when it comes to Bigfoot. He put out a video on, I think it was Friday, actually, last Friday, showing what I had always assumed were two juvenile Bigfoots. And I'm not sure, I thought the video was in America, but it might have been out of India. But they're showing these two what looked like Bigfoots in somebody's yard or something, jumping on a shed and a tree. And Thinker Thunker had taken that video and did an analysis of it. And I've watched this thing over and over again, just to just because I'm in awe of it, honestly. Like I said, I'd always thought that these were just juvenile Bigfoots. Um, but he says that it is absolutely Dogmen in this video. Now, are you familiar with this video, Kenny?
Yes, I actually am familiar with that video, and it's interesting and funny you brought that up, because I've shared that around in a few chats just since it was shared with myself to try to get some proper analysis on that. And as far as I'm assuming with this, and some of the other people that I work closely with, I can't speak for everybody in the North American Dogman Project, but I can speak for the 6 people that agree with me, that I value their opinions, and they're also really high up with us. We seem to think that it's definitely almost 1,000% not Dogman oriented, that it's either primate, like natural apes to the area, or yes, potentially juvenile Sasquatch. And it is out of India. It's not from the United States as well, which there are apes over in that area. And again, people don't realize, I was looking at some pictures because I've been doing a ton of the baboon things, and I'll throw some of them up here. Yellow baboons literally have these bent back kind of canine-ish looking legs to an extent, and they're quadrupedal and bipedal. And there are baboons in India as well. And I've heard stories from people that say that they come right up into your yard. They are not afraid of you, and they are aggressive, which I don't blame them. I mean, we're stealing their land and food, so obviously that's why they're encroaching in our eyes on our land. But in actuality, it's because we keep building stuff. So yeah, of course, the baboons are not dumb. That's just my take and some of our takes on that. And how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to anything. I've seen this video numerous times. They definitely look more human, like they look very human. But I guess the reason, one of the main reasons that he was saying that it had to have been a Dogman, and the video actually says it's a game changer because this is the first video evidence of a real Dogman, according to him. And I think it's cool because they show one of these creatures jumps up on a ledge, and as it's hopping down, it has that digigrade leg, and very dog-like. So it's just really interesting. I love looking at videos like this. It definitely does not look human. They look human, but they're not human. Okay, because they're hairy and they're crawling on all fours. They're climbing up trees. It's just really weird. I was thinking, well, if there is a video, a really good video of Dogmen, I mean, this could be it right here. But I've, like I said, I've always thought that those were Bigfoots on there. So it's interesting to get your viewpoint on that, and to some of the guys in the North American Dogman Project. You guys would know better than a lot of people there. So, but very interesting video nonetheless. So if you guys that are listening want to check it out, go to Thinker Thunker's page on YouTube, and it's one of his first videos listed right there.
No, it's definitely very interesting for sure. And it's not that I don't think it's fake. I just don't think it's Dogman. And I do encourage people to check out some of the behaviors of the yellow baboons. I mean, they literally are shimmying from people's windows, hanging in there. One guy's recording, he's sitting in his kitchen eating, and the baboon just comes in through the window, opens his fridge and sits down, and the guy's like, what the crap? And it's a pretty large size yellow baboon, and as soon as he moves a little bit, the thing's like, "Whoa," and just hops up real quick, and it's not happy. And then it takes a massive chicken out of his fridge and then hangs from the outside of the window and climbs across this brick looking building. And they also have shown them using the power lines to get across, and they have those bent back kind of strange looking legs. So I'll have to try to throw up some images with that. But I really think that some of those sightings that people are seeing, and maybe even in that video, that's what people are seeing, because a yellow baboon is got a large mane, and it's got arms and the kind of bent back legs, a crazy looking snout with the massive fangs and the pointy ears. And yeah, it's just kind of compelling for sure.
The way you're describing that and what I'm even seeing on that video, it does sound a lot like a type 3 Sasquatch. And some people say, and I agree, that people oftentimes, if they see one of these, they get them confused with a Dogman. But then again, there's some people who just clump them all together. A type 3 Sasquatch is like very similar, or is the same as a Dogman. Okay, so I don't know. It's but because they look like the type 3 Sasquatch, they look like they have a long snout, and they look like a baboon, basically.
Yes, and I agree with all that. And that's why it's super important, though, to kind of unclump things and figure out, just what category they belong in. And it's not always people's fault, but yeah, I'm a firm believer that some of the sightings have been squashed together. For example, down in Alabama, the boggy monster, I actually have a theory, because when I've done a ton of the research on that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I was reading a bunch of the reports. No one ever directly, from what I read, saw a Sasquatch. They saw something that looked hominoid, but that's also reports of what Dogman looked like as well. And they found mysterious tracks, yes, but Dogman tracks are mysterious, and we have some that are elongated that look like kind of what your human foot would, except with canine or baboon type like traits to it. And the behaviors of that are super Dogmanish, and bold, meaning, for example, like when it came up and tried to take that guy's wife while she was reading through that window in the house, literally tried to grab her. And then when he gets home later that night, he's outside smoking a cigarette, and this thing tries to grab him and legit pull him off while he's outside of his house. He's so scared he runs back in and he breaks down his screen door. And then by the time the reporters get there, they're trying to move out. They are moving out, and a lot of the town moved out at that point in time as well. So what I'm thinking with the swamp area and such, because again, there are a ton of Dogman reports in that swampy type area, not directly there, but just in general. There's another report of, I believe, a swamp where it was a gentleman walked out in the morning and his truck had had issues where it was all scratched up and bent up, and he had found like a ton of torn up animals on his property. So I think, like I was saying, some of these things are being mixed up together. And I think a lot of that, like I just stated, is dogman type behavior, being bold like that and really terrorizing you. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, first of all, if I had a big, gigantic primate of any kind come through my window and open up my fridge, get something out, I'd just let him eat. Okay, I just let him eat, and I'd back away slowly and run
And that's what
out
that
the
guy
front
did.
door. Yeah, that is so messed up. But and the fact that he didn't drive off and lock. I don't know. However he handled that, he handled it differently than I would have. But yeah, I would have moved immediately as well. So but yeah, that's pretty scary. So I
No,
can't get over thinking about that.
yes, 100%.
There's no telling. There's so many cryptids out there, so many creatures. Uh, we really don't know what all we're dealing with out there. And yes, if there are dogmen in the area, which I do think that there's pretty much dogmen everywhere now, because we do get reports all over the place now. It could be anything. It could be a mixture of both. The Boggy Creek, the Legend of Boggy Creek, Keith Crabtree. He. I met him at the Alabama Bigfoot Conference a couple of years ago. He actually played Boggy Creek Monster actually in that movie, and lives there. Super cool dude. We do hear about dogmen in that area, and yeah, I mean, I've got a friend who was out camping with his. They had hiked in not too long ago. This is just about a month or so ago, actually. My buddy Brian, I've gone out investigating with him and the guys from Cryptid Warfare, Zook and Drewski, and a bunch of their friends. And we went up and investigated that cave up in Tennessee with the Dogman activities, skinwalkers, and well, Brian and his dad and some of their friends, they were hiking in looking for a place to research. Okay, when it comes to Bigfoot and Dogman and stuff like that. And they got into the middle of the woods, and I believe this is in a state forest. It's either a national park or a state forest, somewhere in Alabama, I believe. They got out there, and Drewski was actually on my show Saturday night, and he was telling the whole story to the audience. So I'm pretty comfortable telling it now because he talked about it publicly. But they hiked in, I mean, miles and miles into the woods in the middle of nowhere, and they had just passed a cemetery. They said a cemetery, I think it was about a mile away from where they finally decided to set up camp at night, way off the beaten path. And at some point at night, they started getting surrounded and encircled by a bunch of like multiple what they think were dogmen actually, but they were hooting and hollering and making noise and being pretty aggressive with them all night. And they sat back to back in a 360 circle, basically, where they were all facing out. They were heavily armed, I'm sure. Okay, but they were so far away from civilization, it would have been really rough for them to hike back that night to get back to their trucks. But they sat there till the sun came up and didn't get a wink of sleep, from what I understand. They were terrified, and Brian's dad reportedly said that he didn't think they were going to make it out of there alive that night. That's in Alabama. I live down here in Georgia. We've got lots of dogman reports around here. They did not believe it was Sasquatch. They said they thought it was something else, and it was probably dogman. So
Wow. That's some straight up nightmare fuel right there. Thanks for sharing. That's terrifying. And that actually leads me into my next question, and actually my next statement as well. As far as I've done with my own research with some of the indigenous cultures that I have actually had the chance to graciously speak with, I've heard a few times, and again, you're going to know more because this is kind of your specialty, but I've heard a few times of negative interactions with the Sabe or the forest people, the Sasquatch, etc., coming into villages at night and taking food from some of the natives and also some of the men and women. But that's very few of those. For the most part, the stories that I've heard is that there was a respect aspect there between each, but once modern man came and became, or modern humans, men and women came in and decided that we didn't care as much about valuing things like the forest and the earth, there has now been kind of a distancing between animals as well as Sasquatch between interacting with us. But every type of encounter or historical document that I've heard from indigenous cultures involving dogmen is there's nothing positive there whatsoever. It's always that they are ancient peoples or ancient beings or ancient animals that should be respected, and also you should be afraid of them, etc. In the instance, like I was saying with Boggy Creek or what you were just stating, yeah, I would have to assume that sometimes there's been instances where Sasquatch are taking people, but I feel like that's more of a dogman type behavior. And like I said, you're going to know more than I, but with everything I just stated, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, Sasquatch taking people, especially women and children, is a very real reality, actually. That's something that's pretty well known. It's talked about in a lot of Native American legends and lore. And I mean, even talking to people like my buddy Fred in Alaska, I mean, he was subarctic Alaska Sasquatch. They'll tell you, you got to really watch out for them. They will kidnap. Okay, they will kidnap you. And I mean, there's even that story of Albert Osman up in, I think it was in British Columbia, Canada, being taken in his sleeping bag one night. Okay, and flung over the Sasquatch's shoulder, and for hours and hours he was drug. Basically, had carried on the back of a Sasquatch finally into a cave of that Sasquatch's family. And that was a story. He stuck to it too. That man lost I guess he lost a lot of credibility as an outstanding, citizen because of that, because people thought he was crazy. But he stood by that story until his very last days, that he had been kidnapped by a Sasquatch. But yeah, it's a very real thing. I haven't heard a whole lot of dogmen kidnapping people at all. If I've heard anything, it's them attacking people. If anything, usually it's not a very violent encounter. Okay, when people do come across a dogman, according to eyewitness reports that I've heard. But the Sasquatch, yes, I mean it's a very real thing, and that's another reason that we'd never go into the woods alone, especially me, okay, because I am a female, and I don't want to get kidnapped by a Sasquatch, but yeah, it's part of it, and so you got to, well, humans will kidnap you too, so we got to watch out for humans. I think humans are more dangerous than Bigfoots, in my opinion.
That's all very interesting. And no, I agree with pretty much all of that for sure. So preach 100%. And the reason I just asked that is it just makes me, in my head, I guess, try to piece together some things. For example, when people claim that they're able to gift Sasquatch, and I've heard, again, this is not something that I really go out of my way to research. It's just from, growing up and being exposed to it and just hearing things. I've encountered these type of reports where people have also stated their horses' manes being braided and things like that. So that makes me think that there must be some sort of humanity there and non-violent, but then also, like you were just stating, those type of reports right there. So it makes me wonder if it would be no different than, I guess, how indigenous tribal peoples act in certain areas towards people that are outsiders or not part of their culture. Some would be more welcoming, and then there's others like the Sentinelese, which is a very isolated island that no one's even allowed to go to. That if you fly like drones over there and stuff, they shoot arrows at it. And the one person that did try to go there and speak to them, they shot him with arrows, and they shoot at boats with arrows, meaning more or less they don't want to interact. And it makes me think, I guess, could that all come into play with maybe different tribal groups of these? Because I have never heard any sort of gifting, like I said, with Dogman. I've never heard of anyone wanting to call these in out on their back porch, being like, hey, here, I'm going to give you some burger tonight. Everyone runs inside, locks their doors, like pulls out their firearms. But then I've heard of people actually, like I said, gifting, Sasquatch or Sabe and interacting with them. How do you feel about that?
Oh yeah, I mean, I know people who gift the Sasquatch and stuff, and I do not recommend that at all. Okay, I don't, but I mean, I don't do it. Most people on my team don't do it. I do have one teammate who does, who has a relationship with a family of them, and he's comfortable doing that, and that's up to him. Everybody's different. But I don't recommend doing that. I certainly don't recommend gifting dogmen, because here's the problem with that. Once you start gifting, they're going to expect more. Okay, they're going to expect more. And yes, they may be your friend. Okay, and you may become friends with them. But when the food runs out, or you move and another family moves into that area, or you quit gifting them at that spot, they're going to start
Mm-hmm.
potentially becoming violent and seeking revenge and stuff, and wondering, well, where's my food? So I don't recommend doing that.
I love you
But
just
then again,
said that. Keep going, because I was just going to ask you that. Keep rolling.
don't do that. It, there's just too much room for error there, honestly, especially if you're like at a national park where people take their kids and their families. I don't recommend doing it there, especially or nowhere near your house, and nowhere, not at a national park where families go camping and stuff, because let's just say you take something like apples, a chicken, whatever you're taking, and you leave it there, and there's a campground nearby where kids are playing. Okay, and you leave it there, and these creatures, these beings, they are going to expect it. The forest people, the dogmen, they're going to want it every time, and so you're putting those families and those kids in danger. Okay, because you're not going to always be there, and if they're expecting you to come and bring some more stuff and you don't have it, they may take it out on those kids, or the family. It's just like bears. It's like, don't feed the bears, right? Don't feed the bears. So it's very similar.
Wow, that's just mind blowing, and that actually all makes sense. So, from what I just gathered, is I think people have a misunderstanding of what a gift is to them in comparison to what we think it is, meaning you're pretty much just, yeah, causing an issue. You think you're just being nice and having a relationship, but you're also, supplying food, which is a natural ingredient for everyone's life. And it's no different than a lot of people and scientists believe when people chum the water to bring in sharks for tours and such, they now associate boats with and humans with an additional food source because you're throwing chum over there. And also when people do the crocodile tours and hold the chickens over and encourage the crocodiles to jump up out of the water and get the chicken. Well, they're not stupid. These animals associate that now with food. And like you just said, so now when someone's just out in their kayak or something and doesn't have the chicken for the crocodile, well, it's not funny, but like it's pissed off now. And hey, okay, well, I can eat you. And people don't seem to miss that aspect because yeah, with like my pet squirrel, the neighborhood squirrels come over too, but yeah, you got to make sure you have nuts for all of them because they get pissed off too.
Right. That's exactly right. Yes, that's exactly right. So, just that's why I don't recommend it. But you just don't want to put other people in danger, because you got to look at it this way: dogmen and Sasquatch are not human. Okay, it's just like our dogs. Like, some people let their dogs eat off their plates and stuff, and some people treat their dogs like humans, where ultimately they're actually dogs. Okay,
Yes.
they're actually dogs. I want to talk. My dog sleeps in my bed with me. Okay, so I know I've got a German Shepherd. She's my sidekick at all times. She's right here at my feet right now. As a matter of fact, I do treat her like human like sometimes, but I also remember she's a dog as well, and she needs some discipline, and she needs to be treated like a dog. You know what I mean? But in a very good way. Okay, she's like the most pampered dog, and that's okay. But you watch shows like what is that, the Caesar Milan show, and he tells you how to treat your dog, and that's kind of the same. We got to think about these beings out there, these dogmen, these cryptids, as they're not human. Okay, they're not like us. And I do, and I know that contradicts what I tell people sometimes. Like Bigfoots are just big hairy humans, but they're also not just human. They're not humanized like we are. They're not living in modern day cities and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yes.
They're still rugged. They're still rugged beings out there living off the land. Okay, so they're a different breed. Okay, so we just have to remember that.
No, that all makes very valid sense and also brings in a whole new aspect of how people really should view it. And like you just said, it's like with my squirrel. I mean, she, yes, is able to be sheltered and safe inside at night, etc. But she still loves to go outside during the day and be a squirrel, meaning like even though she has her food in here she can eat, she'll still take it and bury it outside, and the other squirrels just dig it up and take it away. But
Mm.
meaning, like you just said, though, still needing to be a squirrel where, like tonight, she doesn't throw a tantrum because I'm not just feeding her peanuts and nuts. She needs to eat other things, you know? But it's, yes, people don't seem to understand the aspect of that, that an animal still needs to be an animal. It's like when people try to feed an apex predator that likes to hunt something that's already unless something's a scavenger, that's not what they want to do. I've heard of people that have snakes and things and they don't want to eat or frozen rats or mice. Unfortunately, they want to eat it alive. And it would make sense too, like tigers and such that you're feeding in a zoo. Well, that's not at the end of the day really what it wants to do. Sure, it's still eating. Its whole entire build and genetic makeup is to hunt, you know?
Oh yeah. I used to have a pet snake. I know it sounds wild, right? But I had a boa constrictor for many years. And yeah, they like to eat fresh. Okay. Eat fresh, like, is that Subway? It's like eat fresh. Okay. They like they still need to hunt. Okay. Mine did, at least. They still like to hunt, and so do dogmen. Okay. So do Bigfoots as well. They still have that it's almost like an animalistic instinct. Okay, so just always keep that in mind.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Well, thank you again for popping by tonight and giving us some more of your time because we always know you are super busy and have things to attend to. So I look forward to our next collaboration, and any sort of updates that you have on your adventures are always very interesting to hear about and very welcomed. So thank you for everything for sure.
Hey, I can't wait to come back. It's always fun. Appreciate it.
Thank you for everyone who once again stopped by the Fox Den tonight for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. If you did enjoy this episode and would like me to keep on churning out content, please like, subscribe, and share it. Feed the algorithm. And until next time, stay safe out there.